You wake up, but do you really wake up? By the age of 65, many men believe that desire simply fades over time. But science, and the experience of those who live intensely, show another truth. Male vitality can be reactivated, and it all starts in the first 15 minutes of the morning. In this video, we reveal the morning routine of men who still feel desire, energy, and the will to live fully, even after 65. A combination of light, touch, nourishment, and purpose that reignites the body and transforms the day. Discover the habits that naturally stimulate testosterone. Understand what's sabotaging your desire without you realizing it. Learn how small actions upon awakening make big changes. See why affection and presence are just as important as the physical. And most importantly, how you can start tomorrow. Watch it to the end, because maybe what you're looking for, he didn't go away. It's just dormant. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on men's health, vitality after 60, and longevity with quality of life. When a man wakes up at 65, he carries more than his age. He carries silences, doubts, desires that were once fire and today barely recognize each other as embers. He wakes up with a body that no longer responds at the same time, but that, in silence, still screams for life. The first thought may be a sigh or a memory of what once was, but it is in the first 15 minutes of the day that the body decides whether to switch off or if it will rekindle. What sets men apart who keep the fire alive after the age of 65 isn't money, genetics, or luck. It's conscious routine, and this routine starts even before breakfast, because there's a huge difference between waking up inside and just getting out of bed. Testosterone, the main hormone linked to male desire, suffers a natural drop from the age of 30, an average of 1% per year. At 65, this accumulated reduction can exceed 30%. This means that it is not a matter of flaw, weakness, or old age, but rather a natural biological process, which can be reversed with specific actions as soon as we wake up. The first action of these men who keep the fire alive is exposure to natural light. When you open the window, go out in the backyard, or simply look out into the daylight, the body sends a direct signal to the brain. The day has begun. And with that, the hormonal axis is activated. Studies from Harvard University show that exposure to sunlight in the first 15 minutes of the day can increase serotonin production by up to 80% and activate cortisol regulation, which improves mood, disposition, and indirectly boosts libido. But these men don't just expose themselves to the sun. They take a deep breath. Deep, mindful breathing activates the parasympathetic system, which reduces stress and prepares the body for focus. Instead of checking their cell phones or turning on the television, they use the first few minutes to activate their bodies with light movements, such as stretches of the cervical, shoulders, hips, and legs, areas that directly influence blood circulation and sexual vitality. The second practice is the use of strategic hydration. Right after waking up, the body is in a state of mild dehydration, which reduces circulation and negatively impacts erectile function. A glass of warm water with lemon or a little organic apple cider vinegar activates the liver, cleanses the digestive tract, and improves metabolism. Men who maintain this habit report greater energy in the early hours of the day, and, over time, improvement in the quality of morning erections. But there is one detail that goes unnoticed by most men: the way they look in the mirror. Men who keep the fire burning do not wait for a compliment or an outward sign. They stare at each other even with the marks of time and say mentally, "My body is still mine, and it still has a lot to offer." This simple attitude, repeated daily, reinforces the bond between mind and body, essential for desire to be not only physical, but also emotional. The third practice is to feed the brain with constructive thinking. No opening the day with negative news or complaints. Men who maintain sexual vitality after the age of 65 cultivate the habit of thinking of some small but concrete goal for the day. Whether it's walking 20 minutes, preparing something special for your partner, or just listening to good music. This creates an internal state of motivation, which activates the dopaminergic system, responsible for the feeling of achievement and pleasure. These men understand that desire is not born of a solitary impulse. It is built, nurtured, and reaffirmed every day with small decisions. And it all starts in the first 15 minutes of the morning. But there is a silent mistake made by most men who live this process of loss of desire, and that may be sabotaging all the energy of the day even before coffee. This mistake has a simple name, but a devastating impact: haste. Men who get up already running to solve tasks, check messages, or simply have a hurried coffee are, without realizing it, informing the brain that the day has started in a state of threat. And when the brain understands that there is danger, even if it is just the stress of a busy schedule, it shuts down areas linked to pleasure, touch, and excitement. The priority becomes to survive, not to feel. Cortisol, a stress hormone which should be high only in the first minutes of the morning and then drop, remains high all day. And with that, testosterone plummets even more. Studies published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology show that men with a fast-paced, uncontrolled morning routine have testosterone levels up to 40% lower than those who start their day calmly, breathing, and clearly. Another common mistake is the use of stimulants on an empty stomach, such as strong coffee or energy drinks. Although they seem harmless, they cause a rapid spike in energy followed by a sudden drop, creating a cycle of dependence and oscillation. This wears down the adrenal glands and further impairs hormonal balance. Men who keep desire alive at 65 avoid these extremes. They prefer to start the day with green tea, natural cocoa powder, or adaptogenic infusions, such as ashwagandha, which help control stress and naturally increase sexual energy. But perhaps the most overlooked element of all is intentional touch. Many men fail to touch their own bodies with attention. They forget the warmth of the hands, the perception of the skin, the connection with the erogenous zones outside the sexual context. And this leads the brain to deactivate these areas, as if they were no longer needed. Men who keep the fire burning cultivate the habit of feeling their own skin when applying a body oil, when stretching, when taking care of their beard, when dressing with presents. It's not vanity, it's self-contact. And the desire begins exactly there. Eating in the first 45 minutes also directly impacts sexual function. An ideal breakfast for male vitality after the age of 65 includes foods that stabilize blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and favor testosterone production. Foods such as free-range eggs, avocados, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, berries, and oats provide the necessary nutrients to keep circulation active and hormones balanced. Another powerful habit adopted by these men is the use of affirmations. Instead of mentally repeating, "I'm old," "I'm not the same anymore," or "that's a thing of the past," they say, "My body serves me," "My desire is alive," "My age is an ally, not an enemy." These phrases, when spoken truthfully, even if at first they seem like just words, shape neural connections. The brain begins to look for evidence that this is possible. And as research in neuroplasticity shows, what you believe over and over again, the body begins to obey. Men who maintain vitality do not live with guilt, nor with the pressure to be the same as before. They understand that desire is not an obligation, but a reflection of daily care. That it is not about competing with the age of 20, but about rescuing the pleasure of being alive at 65, with all that this represents: maturity, presence, confidence, tranquility. Those 15 minutes in the morning may seem small, but they are, in fact, the password to access a body that you still know how to desire. And every choice made in that time has the power to keep or extinguish the spark. But there's an even deeper secret, hidden in the way these men deal with loneliness and the touch of absence, something many avoid talking about. They do not run away from loneliness, they face it. Men who keep the fire alive at 65 are not afraid of the silence of the house when they wake up. They transform the silence into a space for listening, because absence, when used well, is not empty. It is preparation. It is within it that man learns to feel again, without distractions, without demands, without an audience. Most men of this generation grew up hearing that they could not show fragility, that they needed to cope, that desire was an obligation and performance, a proof of value. But those who broke this cycle understood. Desire does not live in performance. He lives in presence. A present body feels, an absent body just repeats. So instead of filling every minute with tasks, these men choose a moment of interconnection in the early hours of the day. Some do guided meditation, others just sit quietly with their eyes closed and observe their own internal rhythm. This reduces the brain's beta activity, responsible for mental agitation, and activates alpha waves, which promote relaxation and reconnection with subtle sensations, such as the pleasure of a light touch, conscious breathing, or the memory of a caress. This sensory training is essential for the brain to perceive the body as a place of pleasure again. Because without continuous stimulus, the nervous system turns off these pathways. And when they go out, not even medicines work. Because the desire is not only physical, it is an expanded perception of the body. Men who maintain this perception also usually use simple rituals of emotional reconnection, like listening to music that awakens good memories, applying an essential oil that refers to youth, or remembering a scene in which they felt wanted. Not as nostalgia, but as a reactivation of male identity, like an emotional password to remind the body who it still is. But most surprisingly, many of them report that the improvement in desire didn't come from physical actions or morning habits alone, but rather from an internal repositioning. They stopped seeing themselves as survivors of age and began to perceive themselves as whole men in a different phase, but still pulsating. That changes everything. Because the brain, when it receives this identity command, realigns the systems of motivation, pleasure, and conquest. And here comes a powerful and little explored element, the morning purpose. These men wake up with a reason, not always grandiose. It can be preparing coffee calmly, taking care of the garden, calling someone dear. But this reason reconnects them with the feeling of relevance, and relevance is one of the greatest stimulants of male sexual energy. Without it, desire withers. With it, the body lights up again from the inside. It is at this point that the real secret is understood. These men do not keep the fire burning because they want to go back to the way they were before, but because they have chosen to be reborn every day, starting in the first 15 minutes of dawn. But the most impactful of all is that there is an extra step in this routine. A step that involves a silent gesture made before any word, which transforms not only the body but the bond with the person next to you, or even with those who have already passed away. This gesture is caring for the other before taking care of oneself. It may seem contradictory, but men who maintain vitality after the age of 65 don't start the day just by asking, "How am I?" But also, "How can I touch the world today in a gentle way?" And this begins at home with whom he shares the table, the silence, or the memory. Those who live with a partner, even after years of living together, develop the habit of offering a minimal gesture before any requirement. Preparing tea, adjusting the pillow, offering a kiss without sexual intent, just with presence. This reactivates the affective bond. And affection, as studies from Stanford University show, is one of the most powerful precursors of mature male desire. It is not born of impulse, but of connection. For those who live alone, the gesture turns in on themselves. Men who keep the fire burning learn to touch themselves gently, to speak to themselves compassionately. This is not weakness, it is flame preservation. Because a body that feels welcomed allows itself to desire. A body that is treated as an enemy is not. Science confirms this emotional impact on desire. A study published in the International Journal of Sexual Health found that men over the age of 60 who cultivated rituals of affection, whether with a partner, with friends, or with themselves, had 30% more frequency of spontaneous erections, as well as a greater emotional disposition to become romantically involved. Another key element observed in this routine is the care of the previous night's sleep. It seems strange to talk about night when dealing with morning, but sleep is the invisible foundation of the morning routine. Men who sleep well, between 7 and 8 hours continuously, have up to twice the production of testosterone at the beginning of the day. Therefore, the preparation for this awakening begins silently in the last attitudes of the night before. Avoiding screens, having a light dinner, silence, breathing, and gratitude. And gratitude, by the way, is the last link in the invisible chain that connects these men to the fire of vitality. At the end of their morning routine, before going out into the world, they take a moment, sometimes just seconds, to say thank you, not for everything, but for something. Something that still pulsates. Something that still lives. This gratitude closes the cycle. And it releases dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, neurotransmitters that keep the body in a state of openness and desire. From that point on, these men don't get on with the day. They carry the day inside them. They carry with them the flame that they rekindled as soon as they woke up. And this flame, even if small, illuminates every step, every look, every gesture. They do not deny their age. They do not fight against time. But they use time as an ally, shaping mornings that renew desire, not as a lost instinct, but as a daily choice. And now, at the end of this path, a question remains. If the first 15 minutes of the morning can rekindle all this, what are you going to do tomorrow when your eyes open again?